We're live? Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the DBRS Morningstar 2023 P3 Methodology Update webinar. As many of you may have noticed, on August 25, we published the proposed updates to the global methodology for rating PPPs, requesting for comment. This methodology, this new proposed methodology, if approved, will supersede the current version, which was published on August 30th, 2022. There's quite a few material changes in this round of methodology update. We listed a few on this following slide. There's three material changes related to construction phase, things like liability cap, how we notch up for contractors' liquid security, as well as how we calculate equity requirement 7%. And there's one material change related to the operation phase analysis with regards to the minimum DSCR ratio ranges for the BBB category rating for volume-based P3 projects. So today, our objective here is to help market participants, such as yourself, to better navigate through these changes. And hopefully, with increased awareness, and if people do have some comment, they will still have a chance to submit those comments before the request for comment period is concluded. The request for comment period will go on until September 25. So that's sort of the deadline I want to bring to people's attention. One thing to note at the beginning is that because we're still in the request for comment period, we're not going to have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. But if people do have some questions, you can feel free to reach out to me, to my colleague Suneil with me today. After the session today, our contact information will be shown on the last slide at the end of the presentation. And if you have any comments, you're welcome to submit those through the email address, which is again listed on the last slide of the presentation. Okay, so my colleague Suneil will talk about the first three major changes related to construction phase before I'll take over and talk about the last point related to operation phase. Suneil?
Thank you, Kevin. The first proposed change is to revise the expected construction contractor liability caps for P3 projects that have moderate or high complexity levels. Our current methodology has construction contract minimum liability cap expectations, which vary depending on the complexity of the project, whether it's low, moderate, or high. Liability caps below these thresholds could result in notching penalties. For low complexity projects, we require a minimum of 30%, which remains unchanged. For moderate complexity projects, we required 40%, which we are proposing to reduce by 5% to 35%. And for high complexity projects, we required 50%, which we are proposing to reduce to 40%. This is still subject to the requirement that the LTA opines that the liability cap is sufficient to cover a worst case construction contractor replacement scenario. Now, on the rationale for the proposed change, the minimum liability cap is provided in the methodology to provide alignment of interest and skin in the game for the construction contractor. In many of the P3 projects that we have assessed, the LTA's assessment of the replacement premium is lower and typically less than 30%. We also have not seen a contractor replacement situation in P3s during construction. And moreover, for moderate and high complexity projects, there is already either a one notch or two notch penalty or a negative notching for the complexity. These were our considerations for proposing to reduce the liability cap requirements for moderate and high complexity projects. The next proposed change is to refine the basis of the first notching uplift for a construction contractor's liquid security. Uh, Current methodology provides uplift for construction phase security, and for liquid security, the methodology provides a one notch uplift for every 5% of liquid security, which is expressed as a percentage of the construction price. It was not linked to the months of liquidated damages, which sponsors typically size the letter of credits to. Over a number of P3 projects that we have looked at during the construction phase, despite some challenges in the construction phase and projects delayed beyond the substantial completion date, and in some cases beyond the project long stop date, contractor replacement has been non existent. The ability to draw on the liquid security, if needed, were considered positive factors to ensure there is no liquidity issues or cash flow shortfall for the project. We recognize the benefits the liquid security to cover months of liquidated damages would provide, and we are proposing to have the first upward notching for liquid security be linked to the liquid security being sized to meet liquidated damages from the target substantial completion to the project agreement long stop date, subject to that being at least 12 months. Further upward notching would be linked to the additional liquid security available as a percentage of the construction price, which is unchanged. It is worth noting that there is no double counting, and the primary applicability of the proposed change is in situations where the liquid security sized to meet liquidated damages till the project agreement long stop date and at least 12 months may be lower than 5%, for example, 3%. In this example, we would still have the one notch uplift under the proposed change. If this project had 8% liquid security, there would be a two notch uplift under the proposed change. The third proposed change is on the minimum equity during construction. And the change is to adjust the timing to calculate the minimum equity requirement of 7% for DBFOM projects to substantial completion from financial close. Our current P3 methodology stipulates a minimum 7% equity in the capital structure for DBFOM projects at financial close, and this is to constitute adequate commitment and alignment of interests of the project parties to the project. With a greater amount of short-term construction financing in the projects, the equity as a percentage of capital increases once the construction debt is paid off. And the real point where we are concerned is at substantial completion or the start of the operating phase. Hence, we are proposing that the minimum equity of 7% is calculated at substantial completion instead of financial close. It would still have to be provided upfront or backed by liquid security, which condition remains unchanged. I will now hand it over back to Kevin to cover the operating phase and other changes in the methodology.
All right. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the fourth material change, and this is related to the operation phase. The minimum DSCR ranges we're looking for in rating volume-based P3s. I'm sure many of you have asked the question about our ranges for different rating levels before. Unfortunately, we weren't able to provide a clearer answer. Just sometimes we have to point to a certain comparable project, which is not ideal. So now we finally able to provide these ranges. Hopefully this will provide the clarity people have been longing for. Something we really wish we could have done a long time ago. The old methodology only have one line item for low revenue volatility type of asset. We had 1.2 to 1.5 range for that kind of asset. Now we're adding three more lines corresponding to medium, medium high or high revenue volatility P3s. Um, as you can see there, generally speaking, the higher volatility, the higher the minimum DSCR we would expect to see for the same rating category, all else being equal. Also, you will notice, the ranges generally widen with higher revenue volatility as well. In addition, we added a column to the table, the last column, showing some examples of asset classes we looked at before, how we apply our judgment of revenue volatility. For example, for the low revenue volatility, that can be a user pay major highway with limited competition in a large metropolitan area. For example, 407 International, which is a major toll road in the Toronto area, was looked at using applying the low revenue volatility category. Another example, we looked at a pretty big portfolio of service centers along a major highway in the United States. That was also considered to be a low revenue volatility asset. And the medium revenue volatility can be a non-monopolistic toll bridge. Medium high can be land registry systems, for example, Terranet. In the past, we were also using the medium high revenue volatility to rate a portfolio of car parks in diversified location across a major European country. The low revenue volatility type of asset can be managed lane project. One thing very important to note, I think, is that these examples are illustrative only, mainly based on market observation and industry research. Arguably, are more relevant in reading greenfield project, which involve construction phase and sort of a looking forward type of revenue forecast. But in reading project that has a long history of performance data, DBRS Morningstar will still assess the revenue volatility on a project-specific basis instead of only relying on which asset class such project belongs to. Because by the end of the day, there can be so many different combinations of factors, such as location, such as the demographic features, etc., that could make each project very unique. So we will still take a closer look at each project on a case-by-case basis. The last slide is not among the 4 material changes we're proposing to make this year, but we still think it's potentially worth mentioning. This is related to our expectation for permitted additional senior indebtedness as part of the operation phase analysis. We sometimes, from our experience in the past, people spend so much time, analyzing, providing forecast with a lot of focus on getting the minimum DSCR threshold passed for a rating. And then later on down the road, we realize that there's actually no either rating affirmation or lender's approval or a adequate DSCR threshold for the issuer to incur additional senior indebtedness, which was problematic because making it very difficult to argue for a rating higher than what's already pre-approved through the financing document. So we're just trying to provide a bit more clarification and potentially maybe enhancement of the message. So we added a couple sentences in the methodology under the additional consideration section for the operation phase rating analysis on page 44 and page 50, respectively. Again, just hopefully we can provide a bit more clarity. So the implication is really that without rating affirmation or lender approval, first of all, in analyzing volume-based P3s, to the extent any potential impact is considered to be material, this could negate the potential rating uplift from having a very strong break-even ratios. because without a suitable covenant, it is very hard to predict the size, timing of new debt. So that's sort of the rationale behind it. The other potential implication is regarding the sort of a um, soft cap, if you will, without better words. But maybe I'll just read the sentence. Absent a requirement for a rating agency affirmation test or bondholders approval, the metrics required in the additional indebtedness financial test may constrain the financial risk assessment, even if the projected metrics are better. So this is in line or consistent with how we have rated P3 project in the past. So again, just hopefully by adding those sentences, we can make the message a bit stronger, hopefully clearer to the market. So those are all major points we're trying to highlight today. As you go through the RFC, or request for comment methodology, you will see many other changes, mostly editorial or even cosmetic throughout. But I believe those points we just discussed are the major ones I think people should be aware of. Again, if you have any comments, we'll welcome those. Please submit those to the email address shown on the screen right now. And if you have any questions or seek further clarifications, here again, you can see our contact information, phone number or email. Feel free to drop a line. We're happy to hop on a call and provide more clarification if needed. After the session, my colleague will also circulate the request for comment methodology itself to the audience, just in case people may not have had a chance to download it just yet. With that, our session today is concluded. Thank you very much again for attending. Have a wonderful day.